What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal, and I am clicking off some screenshots here. Um, I am here in Albuquerque. I was not in Tucson tonight. Tucson, a place I have previously lived for several years, and worked at the Tucson Citizen, a now defunct newspaper out there. But some friends of mine were out there covering it, and a colleague of mine, Sean Reider, was out there covering tonight's big football game between the University of New Mexico and number 21 Arizona, who offensively looked the part of a Big 12 title contender. Excuse me. Certainly looked the part of a team that frankly has some first round draft pick potential and some playmakers, maybe some Heisman winners, some studs. Right, their quarterback's a star. Their receiver, all 304 yards receiving for T-Mac, just a star. The story of the night and the story for this feed, for the most part, for this post game wrap up, is going to be a little more UNM based, a little more Lobo centric. They look they covered the spread. They covered the 30.5 point spread. They are 0-2, and in the end, results are what they are. But this was a huge bounce back in a lot of ways, in a lot of respects, in my mind, for a team that lost a heartbreaking game at home 1 week ago to FCS Montana State in the final 10 seconds. They didn't trail the entire game until 10 seconds left on the clock. They lose that game to Montana State. How are they going to bounce back? They don't have another home game for a month. And sure enough, not only did they go toe to toe for the first half, they really they held themselves pretty. I think they showed up, and they did really well. So I'm looking right now. I am. Sean is in Tucson, back up in the press box. I'm reading a message from him right now. He has done his post-game interviews, and he will be joining us. He says I have not sent him his link, but he should have it. And if not, I am resending it to him now. Before he joins us, though, I'm going to quickly go over some Mountain West scores, and he will join us. We will talk a little bit more about this game. Some of the scores that, in my mind, were worth looking at today were, here we go, on the Journal's website. Obviously, Thursday night, San Jose State did beat FCS Sacramento State. But that was Thursday. That wasn't tonight. Some of the highlights for the Mountain West today, not a lot of great wins by any stretch of the imagination. Boise State did end up winning 56-45 at Georgia Southern. It was not a game that it was a lot closer than I think people thought it would be. And Georgia Southern did tack on a late touchdown to cover the spread there. But the headliner there is running back Ashton Jeanty with his 267 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. Just ridiculous stats for Ashton Jeanty, and that's something that I think a lot of people are going to have to get used to, because he's a stud, man. He's been doing that in the Mountain West before this year, but for those that don't know, he's going to be doing it a lot more. I'm going to pull up one highlight that he had in this game, and if I can pull it here, I will show you some of the highlights from Ashton Jeanty's 6 touchdown day against Georgia Southern. And again, he is the preseason Mountain West Player of the Year for a reason. He's a guy that I think people are going to be talking about. They're pushing for Heisman for him. I don't know. That's probably a little bit of a stretch for anybody out of the Mountain West. But it is what it is. This is Ashton Jeanty right now in his 6 touchdown game for Boise State. They did beat Georgia Southern 56-45. I'll run down the Mountain West scores real quick while looks like Sean is loading up now. Air Force did beat FCS Merrimack 21-6. Texas just wiped the floor with Colorado State 52-0. Number 4 Texas, that is. Nevada 28, Troy 26, UNLV 27-7. Houston. There was a highlight in this UNLV game. Quarterback Matthew Sluka, who frankly the UNLV offense wasn't necessarily all that good, but he did have 2 touchdown passes today that are worth sharing. One of them here, and So in his game today, Jacob De Jesus had 2 touchdown receptions, and this one was one I thought would be worth sharing. Sean is now joined us here from Tucson. Sean, what's going on?
I am in the medical spotters part of the press box at
Nice.
Arizona Stadium. That's the open spot I could find. So happy to be here, guys.
I will wrap up this Mountain West kind of recap of the day here by telling you number 9 Michigan 30, Fresno State 10. That was a game that was actually a one-score game into the fourth quarter. UCLA final minute had to kick a game winner against Hawaii, 16-13 win. San Diego State ended up it was a little slow start, but ended up taking care of business against FCS Texas A&M Commerce, 45-14 game. Utah State, Nate Drilling, former New Mexico State defensive coordinator, wins his debut as a head coach. Utah State 36 beat FCS Robert Morris 36-14. But I wanted to show you what I think was not only the play of the weekend, the play of the day at least, but man, this is going to be potential, kind of play of the whole season, if you ask me, by this Robert Morris defensive back. Did you see this earlier today, Sean?
Yeah, it's insane, man. It's nuts.
So I'll let that run in here while I wrap up this. Wyoming also kind of didn't exactly show up at Arizona State. There were 2 Mountain West teams playing in the state of Arizona, and one of them showed up and one of them didn't exactly. So Arizona State 48, Wyoming 7. And then, of course, this game, the game that Sean is at, the New Mexico at number 21 Arizona game. And let's just start off, Sean. I want to go over there. The obvious highlights are, I think, Devin Dampier. Look, both quarterbacks on both teams had great games. 2 receivers had great games. You could say the running back, Ja'Cory, both of their running backs at Arizona had decent games. They didn't exactly run the ball much, but I want to talk to you about that. I think part of the reason they didn't run the ball as much as you might think for a team that might have wanted to run the clock out there in that third quarter when they were up a couple scores is UNM did not, for whatever reason, they didn't seem to want to cover T-Mac. They were going one-on-one with him. They were playing some zone coverages where he was wide open, and they just kept doing it, and it didn't. I don't know if this was a case of them not adjusting or them just believing quite a bit in what they were doing. But what did you think of the defense, the pass defense for UNM, first of all?
Well, we asked Bronco about that. I think that was literally the first question I asked him. I said, what was the plan for McMillan? Because, I mean, we had probably focused a little more on Fafita during the week, and that's our bad. We probably should have absolutely gave more credence to what's probably one of the best receivers in the country. And he said the exact same thing as you said. I mean, they were doing man, they were doing some zone, they were throwing everything they could at him. And, that first TD, I mean, that really, on that first drive for Arizona, that was cornerback Pierre Camini Jr. He fell over early in the play on that. So it looked wide open, but that was because, and he was wide open, but that was because Camini fell over. Yeah, I mean, what Bronco said was that they were going to try and give him everything they had, and it just needed to be more consistent on that end to a certain degree, and it did not show up overall. And he gave credit to Fafita too, who played awfully well as well.
Yeah, I mean the stats. The stats are ridiculous. These 2 guys are going to win a lot of awards. They're going to be playing on Sunday one day. They do have a long history, obviously, together prior to playing in Tucson together. But man, it got to the point where, as good as the Lobo offense was playing and as good as the Lobos were showing up after a heartbreaking loss last week, it did get a little frustrating to watch when the same thing keeps happening, right? When the same thing keeps happening over and over again, and the one guy that's just absolutely killing you seems to have space on so many plays. I mean, 10 receptions, 304 yards. It wasn't like they were all just big kind of broken plays, 90-yarders that were racking up all those yards. He was doing it all night. And it did seem like there could have been some adjustments. I think, Bronco certainly isn't the guy that's so far run away from any criticisms like that. But it does sound like they certainly acknowledged it in the post game. But, man, it seems like they should have acknowledged it maybe at halftime.
And look, I don't know how much you adjust to make that situation right without making a whole
Right.
bunch of other situations wrong, right? I mean, are you going to throw triple coverage at him? I mean, what are you going to do there? I mean, that's probably the single best receiver performance I've ever seen in person. If we're being completely honest, I mean, just flabbergasted me. I mean, overall, I mean, I'm kind of at a loss for words, honestly, and I got to sit down and write a story about him after this, but. Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely sensational. And I don't totally know what adjustments that you make. So
late night with Geoff Graham. We'd love to see it. Sean, you are doing a late night as well. I am not the football guy, so I will take all praise, and that's wonderful. That's great. But Sean's the guy that's going to be. I'm flipping this off here in a little bit, and then once I turn this off, I'm going to bed. Sean gets to stay up for another couple hours working. So, but do send us your comments, send us your reaction. I know it is a late night. I do appreciate the 127 of you that are viewing right now, be it on X or some of you on social or on the Journal's YouTube page. Let me go through a couple stats here, Sean. There was let's see, Devin Dampier, 5 touchdowns. The way he responded, let's start with Devin, the Arizona guy. He is making a homecoming to Arizona, not necessarily to Tucson, but he is making a homecoming. And I'm thinking about his stat line. I'll stay with the positive, or start with the positive with how Devin played, and then I want to go into the 600 plus yards that Arizona racked up. But UNM's Devin Dampier, 22 of 39 passing, 260 passing yards, 130 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 passing, 2 rushing. Devin's kind of coming out party is something that a lot of people around the program probably saw coming for a long time. But when you get a national broadcast like this on ESPN, has to probably feel good for him. I'm curious, did you talk to him after the game, and if so, what was his mood afterwards, or was it just coaches tonight?
Yeah, so we only got Devin and Bronco tonight. I will actually, before we talk about how Devin spoke, I will actually go back to Bronco on this. It was kind of weird, most coaches after a loss, I won't say they're despondent or anything like that. It kind of depends on who you're talking to. But they're a little bit more reserved, obviously, especially after, a 61-39 loss and all that. But legit, I mean, we asked him about Devin, and Bronco just sat there and just kind of shook his head and started smiling. He's like, yeah, he's exceptional. Like, he's a really good leader. He played phenomenal tonight. And to the point where I asked him later, I was like, nobody's ever pleased after a loss, but you seem pleased in certain regards. And he's like, that might be a bridge too far, which it was. But yeah, Devin was really good in a lot of ways. The one interception, the first one that he had, that looked like he really kind of forced that one when he probably shouldn't have, just kind of moving on the run, scrambling a little bit too much. That one, he said, it was a broken play and all that, and probably would like that one, absolutely would like that one back. And then the other one was kind of a freak show with the deflected, the ball hit Miller's chest, deflected up, and I don't remember who got the interception for Arizona. But it played really well. Last week we were kind of talking about, how he only rushed, I think, 3 times, true rushes outside of scrambles and all that. And, we kind of asked him about that too. And he said, yeah, like Arizona was definitely giving us the edge to run around. I even saw some people on Twitter in terms of like Arizona fans while they're, really racking it up against UNM being like, we can't seal the edge the way we're supposed to. But yeah, I mean, just a really good performance. The coming out party is a phrase that is really intriguing to me. You're seeing more and more kind of people, the sickos committees of the world on Twitter kind of tweeting out like, oh, we really like this Devin Dampier kid and all that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, good performance, a career performance, but certainly some things for him to clean up in the long run.
I think too that as I'm trying to pull up some highlights while we're talking here, to varying degrees of success. These are some Luke Weissong highlights here, but Luke Weissong obviously had a very good game too after a good game last week by Luke Weissong, and some social media criticism for one drop. But he is a guy that he showed up tonight big time, and I think he held his own against a really good defensive back. Sticking with Devin for now, though, we can get to Luke in a second. I'm sticking to Devin for now. Did he when he threw that first interception, they talked about it on the broadcast a little bit. He kind of went to the sideline and he kind of, I want to say he said something to the effect of, that's not me. He knew it was uncharacteristic what he did. He extended the play so much with his legs and then kind of threw back across the field. It was something uncharacteristic for him. He knows better, and it looked like he was pretty well. I mean, he acknowledged that. It didn't seem like he seemed like a guy that was very poised, and even the one mistake he made that was totally his fault, he right away acknowledged, like, man, that's me. Like, I'm better than that. That's not going to happen again, guys. He seems to be a leader before he's really done enough on the field that the quarterback should usually have 5-6 games and some game-winning drives to really earn that. But he's the leader on this team, isn't he?
The leader for the whole team, I couldn't honestly tell you. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know who's galvanizing guys when they're down and kind of pushing along when they're up. But that is something that Bronco said tonight, and I think I said it earlier, where he is like, yeah, I mean, Devin is a leader, and he has those qualities and all that. And that shouldn't be all too shocking, to be honest with you at this point. I mean, he was maybe not the in-name starting quarterback for the 8 weeks of offseason workouts that kind of took place after Bronco was hired. But, I mean, he was the in-name starting quarterback for the entirety of spring practice. He got a ton of reps with the first team out. I did not give, by the way, tweeting through all this, I did not give the fake pitch enough shine. Did not see it well live and saw it later, and I was like, oh, wow. And he got that, that was basically the fake pitch right after the line of scrimmage. A little Diego Pavia inspiration there maybe. But, yeah, no, look, I mean, he's definitely a leader on this team. And, guys like Weissong are also leaders as well. But, yeah, I mean, it's starting to shine through in a really positive way for UNM, even though they're 0-2. And you're kind of questioning when that first win is still going to come.
All right. Some of the good there. Luke Weissong, we talked a lot about Devin. Let me ask you about Luke Weissong and his performance today. Any surprises or any comments about Luke Weissong, who ended up with, let me read off his stat line unless you have it there. Was it 8 receptions, 8 receptions, 129 yards, 1 touchdown. Any surprises that Luke Weissong had such a good game after last week?
No surprises. And I think we said it, I don't know if I was banking on another career high after he said his last career high last week. But I think we said it, Weissong is still going to be a guy that gets a ton of targets. He's going to be a guy that Devin goes to a lot. They really, really like that connection. And that showed off tonight. I don't remember what number drive it was, but I think it was 3 straight completions. I remember that 16-yard TD was like the third. But, yeah, I mean, it was, there was that 3rd and 20 on that drive set up by that Wallace Finamba hands to the face. And, literally bailed them out 1 play later. And that's a huge play at that spot in the game, because if you don't get that, I mean, you lose that drive, maybe the field goal. But at the same time, I mean, you needed touchdowns to be in this game, and he hooked them up with 1, that's for sure. So, yeah, not surprising, to be honest with you. Another week, I will kind of build on that. Another week, I don't have snap counts in front of me. I don't have targets in front of me. Another week where Medford is only walking away with 1 catch. I don't remember if he had 1 or 2 last week, but it was one or the other. 1 catch. He did have that 9-yard TD. And I did ask Bronco, and I kind of asked Devin too, about what's kind of happening in the flow of the game where Caleb isn't getting out there, because I think a lot of people expected Caleb to be more of a presence, more of a receiving threat on this team. And Bronco said it's small sample size. I mean, we're working it out. It couldn't give you a great answer at this point, but certainly I think that is something that you're going to have to look for throughout the season for sure.
Here's the Caleb Medford touchdown, and you're right. It was his only touch. I don't know if he was targeted more than that. It might have been his only target, if I'm not mistaken.
He was targeted at least twice.
Was he? Okay.
So that, but I don't think it was much more than 3. And even then, I think I might be stretching it.
Yeah, so this was Medford's only reception, and it was for a touchdown. It was actually not a bad snap, but it was an early snap. It caught Dampier and everyone off guard a little bit. It was a good half second before everybody else thought it was coming. And you can see that no offensive lineman moves, and it's already in Dampier's hands. So he recovered well, though, because there was a pass rush coming, because the both tackles, frankly, not just on the right side there, but you could see both tackles actually get such a slow start because the snap was before everybody was expecting it. So anyway, good play by Devin there. I like what you said about Luke. Luke's a guy that's ready to sort of I think be the leader that some people maybe thought he was going to become last year. There was the injury, obviously, that prevented that from happening. So it looks like he's stepping into that role right now. And I know I said it when he was a freshman. Mountain West teams are gonna. Luke Weissong was a guy that 4 years from that first game he played, like they were just going to be like, man, this guy's still playing. They're going to get so sick of him. And I think this year, a lot of Mountain West fans around the league are going to be sick of hearing Luke Weissong's name because he's the kind of player that just is going to make a lot of big plays. And he's only a junior now. He still has plenty of football in front of him. So let's go to the other side of the ball, though, a little bit. This is a Lobo team that a week ago gave up a whole lot of rushing yards to a Montana State team. This week, they play a very good Arizona team. Very good. That said, 627 yards of offense, 422 passing yards, and another 205 rushing. And frankly, the 205 rushing was only because there was no reason for Arizona to stop passing for so long. Is this defense going to be able to stop anybody and win some games with a solid defensive effort?
Well, they got to do it at some point, right? I mean, that's look. It's a small sample size. I think if anything, you're probably more concerned in that sample size by what Montana State did last week. And that's not to say that it's an FCS team and you can't lose to FCS teams. You can't lose by games like that or where you're paying the other team. It truly, I think, like, just when you look back at that tape, and we haven't, we're coming off of live games, so this is all gut reaction. When you look back at that tape, I mean, one of the things that Mendenhall said, and Kyler Drake and Bryce Santana said, all to a man, just one gap off way too often, and that just added up, and it just punished them over and over and over in the run game, and it cost them that game. I don't know. It was systematic in that sense. That was Montana State's strength, and they leaned on it. The Fafita-McMillan connection is definitely Arizona's strength. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know what teams are. How many teams are going to totally stop that?
Nobody's going to have a 1-2 punch quarterback receiver like that. Even you could even say Ricky White in UNLV. He only had 12, 15 yards a day. The Lobos are done facing a receiver quarterback combo like they just faced tonight. Obviously, that's good news because they didn't do anything to stop them tonight. And there's not a whole lot of teams. Obviously, Air Force, but there's not a whole lot of teams that I think are going to put up those kind of rush numbers on the Lobos like Montana State did. I will point out Montana State today, they are now 2-0. They improved to 2-0 with the win over Utah Tech, 31-7 on the road. So Utah State, they're a good team. There's a lot of FCS scares that got put into some teams this past week too, and it wasn't just Mountain West teams. A lot of lesser FCS teams put scares into some teams. So what do we make out of these Lobos 2 games in? Are we thinking preseason prediction of them being picked last by a lot of people, but second to last in the preseason media poll, 11 out of 12? Is it 2 games in? Is it worth thinking that maybe this team could be better despite them being 0-2, or is it just too early to tell how good this team can be?
It's a small sample size, but I think you're seeing the thing again, like it's kind of on a similar note to what I said and what Robert has on the screen right here. We kind of said last week where, people had their heart ripped out by the Montana State game and that kind of ending there. But at the same time, they were invested enough in the product in that first game to have their heart ripped out. I think it was in the first quarter. It was 14-14, and I tweeted out, like, hey, how we feeling, Lobo fans? Like, kind of unexpected that they're, all tied up Arizona early and, driving the ball on Arizona. And, just a ton of people, honestly. I think we can go back to the replies and read it where it's like, yeah, like this team's headed in the right direction. Like, this is the most fun I've had watching Lobo football in a long time. Did it last throughout the second half? No, I think it effectively, Arizona took the game more or less in the first 3 minutes of the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, really that swing where it was that Quali Conley, like 51-yard TD, just kind of broke through untouched. And then the McMillan, God, was that his fourth TD? I think his fourth TD there. And, fourth, I'm losing count.
Yeah, I think that's right though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. There's a dichotomy to it in the sense that the team is definitely improved offensively. I think even while losing a 1,000-yard rusher, it just seems like there's more versatility there with with Dampier as a starting quarterback. You like what you've seen out of the running backs, although they did not run the football all too well tonight, honestly. And I definitely think Arizona, one of their things was they want to take away that run game pretty much entirely. They just didn't seal the edge enough with Dampier. But you do like what you've kind of seen out of the running backs in that sample size. The defense, there's definitely questions, and there's going to still be questions. I think it's a bit more talented last year. At the same time, that talent isn't shining through. Although, Bronco was like he's smiling again when I asked about Noah Gates, who had a really good game, honestly. And that's a guy that has not had a lot of good games. He's had some rough ones in the past in his time at UNM, and he played really well tonight in a lot of respects. But yeah, I think there's a better system for the talent. I think there's more talent, but at the same time, it has to show up at a certain point. And it's weird. I think people are going to still feel good about this team the way that they're competing. Like if they go to Auburn and they give them a good run in the first half, I don't think people are going to come away and be like, oh, they blew in the second half again, because I don't think anybody's expecting them to beat Auburn. But at the same time, it's like, when do the wins come to kind of correlate with that positive feeling, right?
I know a week ago, some Montana State fans pointed out, and when we were kind of pointing out a bunch of positives about this UNM team, that we might have been some homerish local reporters. I think for anybody watching this that is a Lobo fan, you probably understand, and anybody watching this who isn't a Lobo fan, I'll try and explain this to you. The Lobos have looked good through two games. I mean, this is a big rebuild. Danny Gonzalez had a big rebuild. He had a mountain that he had to climb in his 3 years. He was continually pushing the boulder up the hill, and Broncos got a big mountain to push that boulder up too. And I do think that they showed a whole lot of promise in back-to-back weeks, despite it being losses. At some point, the results are the results, but 2 games into a new coaching staff and a new era, I would say things look pretty good for this Lobo staff. I do, as I say all that, I praised them a week ago. They led the nation in penalties last year, in the number of penalties and penalty yards, or penalties per game, and yardage and penalties. I will point out that tonight I noticed, especially in the third quarter, they had a stretch where they were getting called for several penalties. But what was the penalties tonight? The comparison, where am I at? Penalty first downs, they gave up 4, and Arizona had 1. And of course, I don't have the penalties up as I bring it up, the penalty yards. But anyway, the point being, they had a bunch more penalties tonight. I think they had 6. And last week they only had 4 for 30 yards. And they looked a little more in that regard, a little more undisciplined than I recall last week. But I don't think it was so much that it took over the game or something like some of the games last year. What do you think about the penalties?
Yeah, I don't think it took over the game, and I think it's a testament to how bad last year was in a penalty regard that we're kind of walking away from this game being like, well, let's take a look at the penalties. Yeah, I think Namba had 3. He had 2. Had hands to the face early, like the 3rd and 20 I mentioned. He had oh man, I think it was, I want to say holding late in the game. I don't remember exactly when, to be honest with you. I'm trying to.
I had the wrong tab up, but I do have the stats now. And Arizona actually had 9 penalties for 100 yards, and UNM's 8 penalties for 65 yards, and a week after 4 penalties for 30. Double up the number of penalties, double up the yardage. It was noticeable, but again, I don't think that was. I wouldn't say that was the difference. It didn't extend. I don't remember huge drive or extension of drives that really cost them or anything like that. I think what cost them is they weren't able to stop big plays, which is going to be a problem.
Yeah, and it was a problem last year too.
Yeah.
And it's different defenses. It's basically different teams overall. Just even from the roster to the coaches and all that. Yeah, I think what you said was 8 for 65.
8 for 65. Yeah.
Yeah. Do I think it took over the game? No. Do I think when you're playing a team like Arizona and what they do offensively and all that? Yeah, I think that absolutely. I mean, that's probably is a little too much, if we're being honest. But yeah, I don't think it took over the game, but I'm certain that nobody's kind of breaking down the film, heading into this bye week like, oh well, I mean, not bad stuff penalty wise. I think they're gonna be like, yeah, we got to clean up this stuff. And I asked them, Bronco, about some of those offensive line penalties because that really wasn't something that we saw last week, and it is a small sample size. I'll concede. But yeah, I mean, he said like it was situational stuff. We got to get that cleaned up.
What did you think of the stadium? What did you think about that crowd? 44,000, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Arizona really drew last year, as they were kind of coming on the stretch winning games and all that. But yeah, a good crowd tonight. Student section was filling out really nice. Even the game, whiteout. Yeah, it's a phenomenal stadium. So really good atmosphere. I would definitely come back as a fan for sure.
What do you think of, I don't know if you've been able to see Tucson at all. I know it's just you did the drive, so I don't think there's been a whole lot of old Pueblo sightseeing by Sean, but what do you think about Tucson? Huh?
Not a ton of sightseeing. I don't know if you mentioned this, but this was your old stomping grounds.
It was the old Pueblo.
The old Pueblo back in the day. Yeah, Geoff Grammer used to live out here for a good chunk. But yeah, it's cool. I'm definitely a fan. It was cool to drive by McHale. Want to try and get McHale.
Were you able to meet Anthony? Was he there? I don't even know if he was at the game. Anthony Gimino.
No, I don't think I was. No.
Oh, okay. He must not have been at the game. I assumed he was going to be there. But anyway.
No, yeah, it's a cool town. Definitely would come back for a basketball game. Definitely would come back for another football game, either working or as a fan in some regard. Not rooting for like Arizona, but like just as a spectator, I suppose. Yeah, it's cool downtown. I don't know what the downtown was like when you were here, but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, they got statues of me around that campus. So
that's right. How did I forget, man?
Yeah. So wrap it up with this, Sean. What do we look forward to? It is a bye week. It's not like a bye week that's kind of one of those bye weeks where, I mean, it's week 1 of the college football season. They have played twice now, but it is technically week 1 of the college football season. So it's not like a bye that comes at a great time for a team. Where's this team at? What do they need to do to not kind of, it's weird that they're 0-2, and I'm about to ask you this, but what do they got to do to not lose the momentum? Because they do sort of have some things rolling. The offense started to look good. At times the defenses looked okay. Not a whole lot. They got a lot of improvement to do there, but I think the offense today started to look good. So how do they not lose that momentum?
Well, I think the offense looked good. I think the offense looked good in spurts against Montana State, to be honest with you. It
First half, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit more static down the stretch for sure. But yeah, I think the offense certainly showed positive against Montana State. Again, it went flat at times where you couldn't go flat, and this is a good game plan, to be honest with you. When your starting quarterback kind of has the day that he does and sets career highs and all that in a very early career starting quarterback, kind of getting all those snaps, like, yeah, I mean, like you're going to be in a good spot offensively. And when he has the skill set that he has and the way that Arizona played him, yeah, there's going to be opportunities to make plays to keep momentum. I mean, I think they're in a good spot offensively. I was always curious how long it was going to take. This is a curiosity I had last year, how long it was going to take for the offense, a new deal, with a lot of new pieces and all that to kind of come into form. And I think the fact that it's looked this competitive, that it's put up 39 points on a Big 12 defense, not a Big 12 defense with a lot of questions on the defensive line that I don't know were actually really answered tonight, to be honest with you, both a good linebacker core and a lot of veterans in the secondary. For it to kind of come out that way, yeah, I think that's a positive. Defensively, I don't know. I mean, don't play the best receiver in the nation. That will probably help you, gain momentum in some capacity.
They have not scheduled well so far, and he inherited these. I know that, but like to play a top 5 FCS school and then to play a top 25 FBS school on the road, not a good. And then to have a bye. in your first 3 weeks. It is not a very friendly schedule for any program, but especially not one trying to rebuild and gain a little bit of traction with fan base and stuff like that.
Definitely friendly for the beat writer who hasn't had a day off in a while. Definitely looking forward to taking a breather during this bye. But yeah, and then you go to Auburn, and Auburn has a ton of talent. And I don't think they're going to be in a position to, I honestly don't know if that New Mexico State Auburn game last year. I don't know how much of that was honestly Auburn maybe overlooking New Mexico State in any capacity, because Auburn kind of got in a good stretch into that game, and then New Mexico State just bullied them. You kind of want to think there was maybe an aspect where they might have overlooked it. I think it's going to make it only tougher for UNM that they're going to play them a year after that happened, and they don't want to let that happen again. Really the low point of the Hugh Freeze tenure and probably the low point of Arizona football. Well, actually, no. Brian Harsin had some clunkers, if we're going to be completely honest. But, Harsin's tenure overall, probably the low point. But anyways, I mean, you go to Auburn, and then you're going to have to deal with Jalen Moss with Fresno. That is a home game, but I was pretty impressed with what I saw at Fresno today, to be honest with you. I definitely think it was issues with Michigan, but I mean, Keene's a really, really good quarterback. And they didn't get him last year. They didn't get him for most of the game last year, and he wasn't healthy when UNM did beat Fresno there. It's a tough schedule. We kind of all knew that heading into the season, that there was going to be not a lot of opportunities for wins kind of heading into the early stretch of the season. But, I don't know. I mean, I'll kind of wrap it up with this. I mean, momentum, I think you just kind of stay the course offensively, you build more chemistry there. And defensively, I don't think you have to reset anything. I think you kind of got to stay the course there too. You can't really scrap it after scrap anything, honestly, after a 2-game sample size, one of which where you played probably the best receiver in the country, or the best receiver at this point. So, what
are they doing with the bye week? Are they taking a few days off? I imagine no coaches presser this week, especially with the holiday on Monday.
We will have a coach's presser on Monday, actually.
On Monday, on the holiday of a bye week. We're going to
holiday, yeah. Earn, not given right there. We will be earning it on the holiday. But no, we asked Bronco today, and he said he doesn't know what the bye week's going to look like. He hasn't made a decision.
Are they going to earn their road whites for the next road trip, or is that not given yet? Because for those that don't know, the Lobos were wearing their red jerseys because it was a delivery error, or what did they say?
There was a shipping issue where jerseys from last year had to get resized because of the number changes and all sorts of different deals. Not all sorts of different deals, literally the number changes and the fact that it's a new team for the most part. That happened. Some of the jerseys, the resized road whites, they got brought back. They got sent back to Albuquerque, and they were all good, but not all of them. And it ended up being a situation where Arizona kind of worked with UNM on that. So, you know what, we'll just rip the all whites for our game against you guys. And then, most college football programs, travel with multiple sets of jerseys and pants and helmets and all that. And the big old semis you always see in videos and photos and stuff like that. And they rolled with the Reds. So.
Good news is, for anybody that is still up watching or listening, there's only one other game this whole season that starts after, let's see, I guess Fresno starts at 6:30, but there's a San Diego State game at 8:30, and most of them are afternoon or early evening. We won't have too many of these 1 a.m. going on 2 a.m. Post-game wrap-ups, and Sean, you got a story to go right, so enjoy, and we'll be back at this on Monday after the coaches presser to do a brief on that one, especially with the bye. We'll probably do a brief one after that, unless they cancel the coaches presser. But let us know what you guys think. Obviously, you can give us feedback on these whenever we're doing them live, but you could also reach out to us on X or email either one of us. Let us know, give us questions, give us comments, give us critiques, and let us know what you want to hear about on some of these shows. Anything you want to wrap up with, Sean?
No, it's late. Let's get out of here.
Appreciate it. Help us out. Subscribe to local journalism. abqjournal.com/subscribe is how you can subscribe, print, digital, or both. and helps us bring you coverage like this. Helps us pay the gas bill for Sean to load up the car and fill up the gas tank and go to Tucson and cover this stuff. Sean, good work, and get to riding. It was an exciting game, and thank you all for watching. Another edition of our Albuquerque Journal Sports Live post-game podcast will come up with a great name soon, I'm sure. Have a good one, Sean.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.